from Del Rio, Texas, Rob Wade and Robert Garza. Two guys who dive. This episode of Two Guys Who Dive, recorded live Saturday, 7 June, 2014. Episode 106. It's Conditional. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Two Guys Who Dive, and I'm your host, Rob Wade, and Robert Garza is out this weekend because today is his birthday, so we'd like to wish you, if you are actually watching, which you're probably not, your wife's taking you out, as I understand it, so, but happy birthday nonetheless. Great occasion, so hope you're having a great time. So, once again, I'm going solo today, but that's okay, because, as I've said before, I can talk to a brick wall, which doesn't make for exciting conversation, but it is what it is. All right, so the title of the episode today is It's Conditional. Basically spawned because I was planning to dive today and conditions weren't conducive, which we'll get into a little bit of that later on in the show. Starting off, yesterday was the graduation for the Del Rio High School class of 2014. I'm sure that there are a number of schools around the country that are hitting their graduation dates along this time. Not everybody gets out at the same time. Not even everybody in Del Rio gets out at the same time. Some were a week early, some a week later, and so forth. But the Del Rio High School got their graduation out of the way last night. So it was craziness out at the football field there at Del Rio Rams Stadium. But our congratulations to some friends of ours, Michelle Vega and Carolina Buentello, and as well Joshua Sandoval. We know a number of other people, but we're closer friends with those folks. As a matter of fact, Michelle Vega is the stepdaughter of one of our somewhat frequent guest hosts, Troy McGonigal, also one of our favorite divers to go out with. So he and his wife Jennifer are proud to send their daughter off on her new adventure, turning a page in her life. She's heading off to they're out this weekend taking Michelle to a camp where she's going to be working with the kind basically interning in a way towards the career field that she's chosen. So excitement for her. And of course new, because she's going to be out from home for the first time. So that can be a little bit daunting when you break away from home for the first time, when you're not ready for it, if you've not spent a lot of time away from family. So excitement, nervousness, and all that fun stuff, but that's all part of growing up and starting to spread your wings and break out from the nest. You know, that's part of the growing process. Let's see. Movie review. We went to see the movie Edge of Tomorrow. I want to see if I could pull up a trailer for that. Probably on YouTube. See if we can pull that up. Edge. If I could spell, would be good. Edge of Tomorrow trailer. There we go. All right. No. And there we go. Let me switch to screen.
What I am about to tell you sounds crazy. But you have to listen to me. Your very lives depend on it.
This is not the end.
And this is like haunting music, but it's not heard in the film. It might be at the very end of the credits, but I didn't stay that long.
You see, this isn't the first time. that we've had this conversation. What day is it?
Judgment Day. You just came in with the fresh recruits.
This is not.
That's interesting. And it's... Wow. Okay, bandwidth chewed up. I'm not dropping any frames, but having a hard time with the trailer. Maybe if I drop from HD. Oh, switch to that mode.
Soldier you are sending. We lose
This is not
everything.
the end.
Come find me when you wake up.
You do know what's happening to me.
What happened to you happened to me. You hijacked their power. I need your help.
With what exactly?
Winning the war. We can do this. Just come here every day and I'll train you.
This is not the end.
No matter what I do, this is as far as you go.
This is
Why does it matter what happens to me?
I'm not a soldier.
Of course you're not. You're a weapon.
Okay, so that was pretty interesting. Basically, it was Independence Day meets Groundhog Day. For those who haven't seen it yet, I'm not going to blow the critical plot elements, but somewhat predictable. I pretty much pegged a number of things coming along as far as what was driving the plot. Oh boy, hold on for a second. Well, Ronan joined us again. All right, Ronan. Oh, your feet are wet. Say hi to everybody. Or not. All right, slip back there. So now I've got two dogs behind me. It's always fun. I never get to actually sit in my chair because, as you can see, let me take the arm here. Oh, there they go. There's Graza. And now that Chiana's barking, the two that just created pain to get up here are going outside to bark. So anyway, it was a very entertaining movie. It was for the most part, well edited. There were a couple of areas that I thought I would have liked for the plot suspension to be handled a little bit differently. But in a movie where sequence of events happen over and over and over, and a la the movie Groundhog Day, the certain things change because he figures out what he can do to move forward. And there are points in the movie where they just show, got a bug in here, they show his death over and over and over, just like in a montage of how many ways is he going to die this same way. And then other areas, they go forward quite a bit, and then, golly, this bug is really going to attack me here. Then suddenly they've moved further along in the timeline, only for you to realize this is yet another example. Boy, I'm going to kill this thing. This is like the 14th time they've been down this road. They just haven't given you, they've not made you privy to the previous times they got this far because they needed to reveal another part of the interaction of the characters or whatever. So they use that kind of back and forth, and so that got a little bit old. But generally, it wasn't too bad. I would give the movie probably a 9, an 8 or a 9. Not a Tom Cruise fan. Oh, this bug is. Hopefully, you can see it's like all in my face. I'm not a Tom Cruise fan. Emily Blunt, she's okay. She's been in a number of different movies I've watched, but I could take her or leave her. Got to watch the language, of course. I understand the context. I understand. Golly, this fly or whatever it is really getting close. In the military, there's a lot of that language that goes on. I get that. So they're trying to keep it somewhat realistic. I thought that Bill Paxton's portrayal of the sergeant was perfect. He had the kind of confidence and arrogance as well as command of control. Almost got him. That you would expect from a military leader or NCO. Golly, this thing is going to bother me the entire episode. But his characterization at times reminded me of his character in the movie Aliens. In fact, it would have been hilarious had he had the director thrown in a small homage to the character that he played in Aliens. I think it would have been great. But he pulled it off very well. In fact, to me, he was kind of the most likable character in the movie, which is sad because it wasn't a tremendously significant role, but it was enough that you got to enjoy it. So, good movie, good science fiction, great CGI. A couple of points I probably thought, I don't buy that, but that was the mechanism of telling the story, and so it had to work. So, if you go see it, I think you'll enjoy it. You definitely don't want to bring the little kiddos along. We saw the X-Men sequel last week, right after the podcast, and it was a good movie, but I kind of have a complaint that again, it seemed more. Well, it didn't seem. It was another Wolverine movie. You guys are gonna have to quit bumping the cameras. It was really just a vehicle for Hugh Jackman. Now, there's a tendency for parents to bring their kids to these movies. There was a little bit of language. And I'm sure the ladies will be flocking to see this, but there was complete rear nudity of Hugh Jackman. I was like, I gotta say, the guy's impressive, but that was purely a gratuitous scene that they showed. So I think it was a bad idea even though it says it's PG-13, I think it's on the upper edge of PG-13. I think it probably should have been. I probably think it should have been R because of a couple of things in it. So I do not recommend you bring the kids to it. I really don't. But it was an entertaining movie, good storyline. Who knows? It was an interesting ending. So who knows where they're going to go with it? Because it's a time travel. You affect things that you change in the past, what they do to the present, and so forth. So I would probably recommend you take 18-year-old and up, and you'll largely enjoy the movie, but just be prepared. Let's see. Those of you who've been following know that my wife was in a car accident a few weeks back, and she's fine. But, of course, our rodeo was totaled, which is what we tow our scuba trailer with, as well as it takes us on a lot of our longer trips because you can load plenty of gear in there. So we've been on the hunt for a replacement vehicle. Well, they haven't made the rodeos for a long time, and doggone it, that's such a workhorse. That thing just kept on ticking. So we needed to get something newer, and kind of been searching, not meeting into too much luck, but we think the hunt may be just about over. Got one coming into San Antonio that we'll have to go check out, but we're feeling pretty confident about it. It'll be our new vehicle for towing the scuba trailer, which could come none too quick. The problem is it doesn't have, this particular one that we're looking at doesn't have a trailer hitch on it. So we're at the beck and call of other people's processes. So we're waiting on the insurance company to finish out their adjudication on how much that they're going to give us on that. I'm trying to fix the focus on the camera here. There we go. Find out how much they're going to give us on the total for the vehicle, our total vehicle. That'll be obviously our down payment, and then we have to get that together. We have to get insurance on the vehicle, and they have to transport it to San Antonio. Then we have to schedule time off to go to San Antonio to pick it up. And oh, by the way, I've got a scuba class at the last week of this month, so I need it before then. On top of that, of course, programming note, as we mentioned last week, next weekend, the 14th, we will not have a netcast because ScubaBob and I will be headed to Colleen to get our refresher course on doing visual inspections for tanks, because as we talked about last week, you have an annual requirement to have your air cylinders inspected for any flaws, other issues that might make it no longer functional. So we go through PSI, PCI, and it's a 3-year requirement. So we're coming up on our 3rd year. We're actually good till August, but because we have so many things going on between now and then, we needed to knock it out now. So next weekend we won't have the show. So we won't be able. I say that to say I'll be driving either with Robert, or more than likely I'll be driving our car, but we'll see what happens. If that's the case, that means we need to get the vehicle before next weekend. So we're hoping, which means we probably have to take like Friday off and do it or something. So we'll see what happens with that. But so we're running on the ragged edge of getting things done the way we need to get them done. Tech news. Last week we talked about Fabien Cousteau, grandson of Jacques-Yves Cousteau, and how he has got this project that they're doing where they're spending 31 days underwater doing some studies and things like that, and that they're partnering with Nokia to chronicle this adventure. And so they're using the Lumia 1020, which is the phone that both Tara and I use. Fantastic camera. Well, a company called Watershot created a custom underwater casing for it. And I thought, okay, well, that's really cool. Well, on WP Central, Windows Phone Central, they Daniel Rubino did a feature on that. So I'm going to bring that. And so there's some great video and pictures of the case and everything. So let me bring that up. Here we go. So there's a good shot of the case. I mean, that is an impressive, that is a heavy duty case. And let's see. I'll do on the videos here. Here's some video taken using the Lumia 1020.
Back in the habitat at, what time we got at? Oh shit, it looks like 9:30.
This is all filmed with the 1020 that they're using.
Tonight we were camming the corals, if you like to say. It's using an instrument called pulse amplitude modulated fluorometer. So kind of a mouthful, we just go with cam. But what it does is it hits these corals with a really intense pulse of light, and then it measures the amount of light that is reflected back off of those corals. Time for dinner. Doing the delicious chicken breast with mashed potatoes. Let me know how that is. Needs to cook still, it's good. Good stuff. Even has the grill marks on it. A little colder right now. But once we throw in some hot water, that'll heat right up. And then, of course, the mashed potatoes. Yum.
Here's some more video done. So shot exclusively using the 1020 and the 1520. So here we go with some more underwater.
We had a pretty big day.
Yes.
Today was the first day we were able to get in the water and actually need it for our nutrient enrichment experiments. And we spent a couple hours underwater, which was fun at first. You know, we were hanging out waiting for some of the VIPs to clear the habitat so that we wouldn't be in the way too much. So me and Andy were out on hard hats for about 3 hours, which was fun for the first hour and a half because I had the camera, the Lumia, to take pictures with. You know, after you're there for a while, you start seeing the same fish. So I ended up actually taking a nap at the bottom of the ocean, which was pretty cool. Woke up, got the sonars all set up, the tripod is deployed, and actually I was able to finish programming the software that's going to allow us to automatically view our data. So now that we have the sonars deployed, and they're now currently running, every 5 minutes the rotator attached to our Eris is going to rotate between our 4 stations that we have. And so it's going to record that, and it's going to do that automatically on its own, which is pretty convenient. So got all that figured out, and had another good day underwater. So all in all, can't really complain. Things are going well. Looking forward to getting back out there tomorrow and getting our first real data. Have a good night, guys.
Exclusively on the Lumia 1020. So that's pretty impressive. $300 basically gets you this case, and it's a limited run. So anybody who's looking to get me a early birthday present, I would not turn that down. Now, we are very, very happy with our Sea Life DC 1400 Pro Duo. It is a fantastic camera that is the camera itself has features that are designed specifically for snorkeling and diving. It has its own built-in digital filters. You could actually tell on the Sea Life camera, you could actually tell it you're on the land, and so it has no filter, or you're snorkeling 20 feet, 25 feet or shallower, so it uses a very light red filter, or you're going deeper and it uses a heavier filter, so it helps compensate for the loss of spectrum as you go deeper. If there was a market for this obviously is a very niche type of situation, housing for a 1020, which I'd love to have just to have it and be able to use it like as a backup camera. You'd really need to have somebody come up with an app for diving that adds that filter live, similar to how the Sea Life camera works. But so I don't actually see that happening. But still, if you keep it shallow, that is an awesome housing. You know, of course, a number of people were commenting in the forums, both here and some other places where this casing has been discussed, and they talk about, well, it's awfully pricey for a case, and I keep telling them, you clearly have not looked at true underwater casings. I'm not talking about the chintzy iPhone snorkeling cases that you can get that are only good for about 5 feet, if that. This thing's good for 300 meters, so this is like you could do tech diving with this. Recreational diving is only going to be 100 meters, so you're not going, or not even 100 meters. You're going to find that this is perfect for that kind of environment. Again, the only downside is that it doesn't have the camera itself doesn't support filters. Now, what I couldn't tell from the pictures of the case, let me switch you back to the screen region view. What I couldn't tell is if a industry standard attachment can go on the camera. Now, that would be awesome, because then you could put the typical optical filters on there, but I can't tell if that's the case. Now, others complained about, well, that's not good because you cover the flash. Well, the built-in flash on any camera in an underwater housing is virtually useless. If you look at, matter of fact, let me go to IkeLight. Let's see. Let's look at housings. Okay. So in the units where you have the clear housings, you could sort of use the flash, but what you run into, and you see that they're for typical cameras, not cameras that are quote unquote underwater cameras. These are underwater housings for existing common and some not so common cameras. So let's look at, oh, that's not what I want. Lovely. Oh, gear view. So let's look at this camera. So the flash is covered by the what do you call it? The bezel, the lens bezel on here. What you use typically with all of these types of devices, these underwater housings, is you have along the bottom, you have a tray, what they call a tray, for mounting. Like, let's use this as an example. This one has a tray mounted for handles, so you can control it better, because this does obviously video very well. As a matter of fact, a lot of your cameras do video. Let's see if they have some others. Here's another one that has the single-handed tray, which typically you would mount lights to, a strobe or a video light to. And then there are other companies that make housings too. Let's see. Let's look at Canon. They have prices. Yeah, look at this. MSRP, $325 for the housing. So it's not unusual at all for a $300 housing for a camera if it's solid, which this one is. I mean, that thing is made out of aircraft aluminum. It's got a nice solid grip on it. You got your power button on the top and your actual picture button. Now, it's got capacitive buttons that work with the Nokia camera app. Now, because there's obviously a number of apps that you could use, or let me rephrase this. In the Windows Phone world, these are called lenses. They're called lenses. So when you bring up the camera app, you can, by clicking on the ellipsis, which you can't really see very well here, but the 3 dots, that's the ellipsis. If you tap on that, one of the options you have is lenses. Matter of fact, let me see if I can demonstrate that with mine. All right, let's switch to the close-up view. There we go. All right, so I have mine in a case because it's got a stand on it, which I find very convenient. So, and it's purple, which I love. It's my favorite color. All right, so I'm going to bring up the camera app, which I can do by pressing the button. Yes, use my location. All right, so this is the app like you see on their example. Okay. Now when I tap the ellipsis button, you see there's an option for lenses. So I tap lenses. And so all of these lenses are available. I mean, these are ones I have installed. And what's neat is, by lens, it means that you can use that as the default mechanism by which the pictures are taken and handled. So it's got photosynth. Twitter's considered a lens. Vine is considered a lens. But it's got Nokia's Office Lens, Perfect 365, Nokia Refocus, Cinematograph, Dual Shot, Cam Scanner, Blink, the standard Microsoft camera app, Bing Vision, that's used for scanning in like apps, using the QR code, Translator, and some other programs like that. So, and then you can find more lenses. So you just pick the lens that you want. Now, if I were to switch to, let me switch to the standard Microsoft camera app. Now, as you can see, the buttons are different placement there than would be useful with that shell. See, I'm going to switch back to screen region. See, the buttons would not work with where that's placed. So you'd have to use the actual Nokia camera app in order to make those buttons work. So there's a capacitive button. There's a capacitive button for switching. Oh, didn't even show you what that was. The button that you see on the right happens to press over, and it's capacitive. It happens to press the switching the mode from camera, still camera, to video. So you can easily switch back and forth. It's kind of a rotating button. So you press that and you can switch to video mode. And you press it again and it switches you to what they call rapid shot. We'll do like 3 shots at a time with low exposure, high exposure, normal exposure, and then try to get you the best shot of the 3, taking the best elements out of them. And then back to still, just regular still. Excuse me. The capacitive button on the upper left here, you'll see there's an icon right next to it. Well, there's another icon right underneath it, and the one on the left is to let you see the standard definition, lower resolution 5 megapixel version of the pictures. The one underneath it, the capacitive button, lets you see the full high resolution one, the 38 megapixel one, because the Nokia Lumia 1020 actually takes 2 photographs at the same time. With the 41 megapixel lens, it's actually taking a 5 megapixel and a 38 megapixel picture of the same thing. The lower resolution one is obviously much nicer for sharing. because it doesn't take a huge amount of bandwidth. So if you want to post something on Instagram or whatever, or Twitter or Facebook, that's the one you want to send. You don't want to try and pump that 12 megabyte to 15 megabyte high resolution version around. That would eat up your data. Eat up your data plan really quick. So, and you see, this is solid. This the components are screwed in. I mean, this is impressive design. So anyway, very easy to use. The video, if you go to WP Central, if you want to see more about it, Daniel's video of opening it up, putting his phone in it, because he's got a 1020, putting his phone in it, seeing how that works. Very easy to do. Even a caveman can do it. So pretty smooth. So pretty cool. So if you got an extra $300, $299, that's that, and you have a Lumia 1020, that'd be an awesome thing to get. If you don't have a 1020 and you have an extra $300, I have a 1020 that I would love to receive that as from you for. So it'd be awesome. All right. So we were talking. I was mentioning earlier we were trying to set up a dive. We've got some newer divers in the area that seem to be a little bit more hardcore, but trying to coordinate with them, availability is always tough, because usually those types who are hardcore divers are also pretty hardcore everything else. So they're very, very involved, just like Tara and I are. If you saw our schedule, you'd see how crazy it is, how difficult it is to find free time. So when we get a night off, it's cool. Monday nights, we're volunteering at a Pet's Wish, and if you're in the Del Rio area, I highly encourage you to check them out, visit with the folks there, and volunteer your time. Those poor animals there desperately need your love and care, and just care and feeding is helping. You know, it would be helpful. So check them out, A Pet's Wish in Del Rio, Texas. So anyway, we visit there on Monday nights. I have typically either some training or board meetings, that kind of thing, at our church on Tuesday. Tara's usually available, which is nice. She's usually scrapbooking. Wednesday, busy with our youth service. And then Thursday night, I've got youth and adult praise team practice. So Friday night is really my only pretty much guaranteed night off. Of course, Saturday night, I'm here with you guys doing the podcast. And at the end of each month, teaching a class during the day. So Saturday is taken up. Sunday's church. So pretty much most of Sunday is taken up. So not a lot of free time. But so coordinating for dives is very challenging. But I'll always make time if I get somebody who's interested, especially night dives. If I can get some more night dives going, I'd be happy camper. So we were trying to set up a dive and had some that were interested, but they were actually headed out for dive trip to Cozumel, and nobody else was available. And as it turns out, the end of this week was pretty horrible. It started out nice, and then at the end of the week, we suddenly got all these winds coming from out of the blue. So Friday all day, huge winds all day. And then I was hoping, okay, well, maybe by nighttime it will calm down and Saturday will be calm. And I knew it was going to be mostly sunny, but nope. It started out actually cloudy, and it finally broke up, but it was just windy all day, high winds. And the problem with that is that affects your visibility. Now, so that kind of got me thinking about a topic to share with folks on the netcast tonight. The kinds of things that affect your visibility and what you need to consider if you're trying to plan your dives, which you should plan all your dives. There are a number of things that can affect your visibility. Particulates, which could be anything from silt, etc., that get kicked up, or as in the case for the past few days, when you have high winds, those stir up the water. And so they start beating the shore, as well as creating vertical circulation, rotation, if you will, to shallower depths, but still to certain depths. So you've got silt, etc., that gets kicked up. Those particulates get kicked up pulled up off the shore or off the bottom, and then are suspended or moved around, toiled in the water column. So it kills your visibility. You can be your own worst enemy as a diver too. If you've got divers who are not good with their buoyancy control, or it's their first time out with new fins and they're not comfortable with them, they may be kicking up a lot of silt and not even realize it. You know, it's amazing when you're diving how little you feel the tips of your fins. The longer the fins are, the less, and especially the more flexible they are, because you can get fins that are more rigid or more flexible. You're less likely to get a sensory feedback that anything is going on with your fins any further than just a couple inches past your toes. So you have to really be good with your buoyancy control so you don't kick up a lot of silt, because you may not even realize how close your feet are. If you're not solidly in control of your position in the water, you know, whether or not realize your feet are heavy, and so you end up kicking a lot. When you slow down, you've lost your forward momentum, forward motion, and your feet start to drop. Well, as soon as you start kicking up again, then you kick up that silt. Salinity gradients. In other words, changes in the salt content of the water can dramatically affect what your visibility looks like. I've got, this is my cute picture for the day. I thought this was hilarious. Get this cat is prepping to go after this this goldfish. I think it's hilarious. A little cat mask, cat tank, and regulator. It's hilarious. All right. So anyway, on to more serious business. So the other things that can affect your visibility are going to be either particulates or algae. You can get various organic matter. In the case of Lake Amistad, we kind of have a little bit of both. And this is an example of a shot out at Spur 454, as a matter of fact, in one of the coves, where I came across a lure that a fisherman had got stuck on a tree, underwater tree. So you can see the visibility is not very good. And in order to get this photograph, I had to come in pretty close. And matter of fact, I made sure I did not have the strobe on, because it would have created backscatter. Light would have reflected off of the particulates. But you see what you have to compensate for. Let's see. Well, hello. So, salinity changes. If you're diving, if you've ever heard of what a cenote is, which is basically a cave where the opening the roof has collapsed or opened up, where sunlight is allowed in, or and often is the case, fresh water gets introduced. Here's a very, very simple diagram of a common kind of cenote, where it can create a what they call a halocline, which is where you have a difference in salinity. You could have, in this case, fresh water mixing with salt water. So to the left, you have a spring, fresh water feeding into what used to be a cave. And so it builds up, and then in this case, there's an opening that siphons off the fresh water as the spring feeds into it, and it's coming into an area that has got salt water that's exposed to, that maybe have an opening of the cave area to the sea. And so you have the denser salt water below the fresh water. And so what that would look like is something like this. And that's amazing because it seems to defy gravity. There's some other pictures you can find with haloclines where there's not this murkiness below, but it almost looks like they're flying over a shoreline. It's amazing pictures. But so if you have a mixture of either very high salt content water and very low salt content water, you'll get a same kind of effect. It's just more dramatic if you have a mixing, a layering of fresh water with salt water. Now also, you can have thermocline, which creates kind of a reflective effect. And in fact, submarines use thermoclines to help in submarine warfare, because when you have a dramatic temperature change, which changes the density of the water above versus the water below, sonar actually reflects off of that, which seems odd, but that's how they protect themselves. So if they can get, if they're above a thermocline and being chased after or hunted, they can drop below it and basically remain, other than cavitation from their propellers, they could remain invisible to an enemy. Now, in a typical fashion like you would see out here at Lake Amistad, we have much less dramatic thermoclines, but basically here's what happens. You have wind that pushes across the surface of the lake, and it creates kind of a churning, a circular movement of the top, very, very, very top layer of warm water as the sun heats it up. And this is typically what happens in the summer. It heats up the first few centimeters or inches of the water, and then winds help circulate it to a fairly shallow depth, but still it creates a layer. And then you have, obviously it gets colder as you go deeper, but once you hit you'll hit a point that changes throughout the summer where you feel a pretty dramatic drop in the temperature from the warmer water above to the colder water below. And what's interesting to note is you can get this layering so that the very bottom layer has very little oxygen content. So you won't see a lot of fish down there. So that's another reason why we tell people don't get all excited to go deep especially as a newly certified diver, because there's not a lot to see down there. Most of the oxygen is depleted from the water. Breathable oxygen for fish is depleted out of the water by fish that are down there, and so they end up coming up to the shallower depths where oxygen has been replenished from the surface into the water. But during the winter months, then typically you'll see a turnover or as going into the winter, you'll see a turnover where the water on the top starts to get colder and colder, and so it actually gets heavier than the water down deep, which has maintained a fairly constant temperature the whole time. And so you have this turnover of the lake. So the water that was actually down below actually moves up as the colder water from above pushes down. And so that brings some of the nutrients, some of the oxygen richness down to the deeper layers. So you'll see during that time more fish down deeper. So, as a matter of fact, to show you some examples of a little bit of the thermocline effect, as well as particulates being kicked up, I'm going to replay some portions of our video from last week of going out to Spur 454. All right, I'm going to skip forward here. Right, so this is fairly shallow. And And so you see a lot of particulates that have been kicked up because we were diving during during a lull in the storm. So you can see visibility is not very good. A lot of silt. As a matter of fact, you'll see as I move along here where the light picks up a lot of the backscatter, and then as Troy was moving ahead, or as I caught up to him, he kicked up a lot. That's Renee. That's Chris. Alright, so you see a little bit of the light. You see hitting the particulates suspended. They're kicking up some stuff. You see a big plume being kicked up. You see what that does to the visibility. And you can get what you can get similar to a whiteout with your lights in that kind of situation where you can't see anything because your light is just creating nothing but a backscatter disaster. So visibility was pretty bad. I mean, it's still acceptable for me because I'll dive in just about anything, hence the nickname ScubaDog. But I'm going to skip ahead to where we dropped lower. Okay, it's still pretty bad there. Now there it's opening up, there's still a lot of particulates on the bed. Visibility was better here because we dropped below where a lot of the thermocline was changed, and what you see basically is anything he was kicking up. You see how much better the visibility was compared to earlier on. So you see the catfish really easily. So big difference from there to here. Huge difference. So that shows you kind of example. It's not as dramatic in a lake, at least a lake like Amistad, and especially down in Del Rio, because for the most part, our temperature swings aren't really dramatic. Not like going up to the Midwest or North, where you can have it really warm at the surface and then still very, very, very cold down deep. So ours has a better gradient to it, so you'll see less dramatic temperature changes. You'll start to feel that towards towards fall. Well, actually into fall, as the temperature starts dropping, you'll see more dramatic changes actually there. But even now, where we've had colder temperatures, not warming the lake up as much, you see that there is a little bit of a thermal there that changes the visibility. And what's interesting is you get below it and you can look up and you'll kind of see that layer. When on certain times of the year, we can be cruising along and you'll get that side view of it, which is pretty cool. You drop below it and that line, that demarcation line, is so very clear and obvious that it's silty above and then suddenly you drop below. If you've ever been driving at night when there's fog and you're in a hilly road and you drop down below and you just suddenly, it's like dropping out of the clouds and you just see that layer, and then you end up coming up the other side of the hill and you drive up into it. That's the kind of effect you often see in this kind of situation with the thermocline affecting your visibility. Let's see. But here's the thing. low visibility doesn't have to mean you call your dive. It just means you have to prepare properly. When you go on a dive like this, you saw that you saw that we carried lights with us. Now, we always carry a BC light, so even in the best of circumstances, you might be under an overhang where sunlight is directly blocked by the shadow of the rock, and so to see underneath it, you obviously need a light. And so a BC light is easy to carry, easy to take care of, and it doesn't get in your way. But on this kind of a situation where we already had a lot of cloud cover because of the storm, and because I knew that silt, etc., that at least the top layer would be pretty have high particulates. We were running with our regular primary lights, and in my case, although I did have my Princeton Tech pistol grip light, I was really using the video light on my camera, which you saw was very good, to see what we could see. But that's the kind of thing you prepare for. If you know you're going to have something that's going to reduce your visibility, bring the appropriate things to help mitigate that. If you're into underwater photography or videography, same kind of situation. Doesn't necessarily mean you leave the camera behind. Take into consideration where you're going, what you're looking to photograph, and then plan it appropriately. If you've got actual strobe extension or video light extensions for on a tray on your camera, then typically you can aim those at angles from the sides of your image. So they're lighting it up for the camera, but not creating a reflectivity back as it would happen if you were actually able to use the built-in flash on a camera, which shoots straight out, hits your image, and comes back. Well, if between you and the image is nothing but particulates, then that's what you're going to see smacked back in your face, is the reflection off of those. So what you want is to light it from the side. And in many cases, what you want to do is take your strobe or strobes, if you've got dual ones, and actually pull them behind the housing. So what you would have is, you got your camera, and you would pull your tray, your strobes back behind, so they'd be up here and pointing at an angle, and up here pointing at an angle. So the light is actually coming from behind the camera. And so that helps reduce it. Other things that can help you if you're trying to take pictures underwater is take into consideration, all right, if I want to reduce the effect of this backscatter, then you can increase, if your camera supports it, increase the aperture of it, which basically is going to reduce the amount of power that you have to turn your strobe, because most of your underwater strobes have power settings. So you can actually reduce the power of your strobe and open the aperture, have a wider aperture on your camera. So you don't need as much light being flashed, because it's going to try and pick up as much ambient light as possible. If you don't do that, you could try going with a higher ISO. Adjust that higher. Now, again, the higher the ISO, you run the risk of having a very grainy image. It really comes down to how good the sensor on your camera is. Another thing you can do is to slow down the shutter speed. That means that it's going to keep it's not widening the aperture, but you're basically saying, I'm opening the shutter to let more light in. But the problem with a slower shutter speed is any movement is translated. You can use that for an intentional effect. Good grief. If you want to get a blurred image. But the problem, again, underwater, what you're trying to do is be as steady as possible. You want up? Got visitors again. Come here, Ronan. Hopefully they won't have any more barking going on between now and just about done with the show. So anyway, the longer you hold the shutter open, the more likely you are to move. In the water, it's even harder to keep still because even in the most still water, you're not in a current, you're not in affected by waves. You cannot maintain perfect stillness, and so the longer you keep your shutter open, then all of this subtle movement creates a problem. Now, I'll say with this special housing by Watershot for the 1020, that would be a pretty awesome thing because the beauty of the 1020 is it has built-in optical stabilization. So it actually compensates for a fair amount of movement. If you attach the right amount, the right kind of like a video light tray or something like that to this housing, I imagine you probably could get some pretty awesome pictures with it with a slower shutter speed because it does have that optical stabilization. But those are things to consider. So you don't have to automatically think if the visibility is bad, I can't get pictures. You can simply compensate if the subject that you're shooting allows for that. Get closer to it so that there's less particulates between you and the target that you're trying to shoot. So even if you use the flash or video light, it's going to have a less negative effect because you're really close to the picture. In the shot that I took, let me show that again. In this picture, I did it without the flash, but you see, I got really close to it. I mean, I was right up on it and focused on it. That's why I was able to get such a good shot of it. If I'd been further away, the particulates would have been in the way, and it would just look horrible. Another trick that you can use too in lower visibility is to shoot from below the subject, because believe it or not, visibility is always better vertically than it is horizontally. So if you're trying to get a shot of something and you can get underneath it, then you'll have two things helping you. You'll have more light coming into the camera from above, and the vertical water column is going to be better. Now, the exception to this would be if you were shooting it through a thermocline or shooting through a halocline, because if you're shooting through that, then you've got that separation that's going to create it's going to create a visual effects problem. Now, sometimes that's exactly what you want because that's what you're trying to illustrate. You're trying to illustrate the effect of the thermocline, or you're trying to illustrate the effect of the halocline. So take that into consideration. So, and also there's a certain attractiveness to getting a shot of a subject where you're underneath, because everybody can get shots from above. Everybody can get shots on level, but it's kind of neat to get those shots from underneath something. I've taken a number. I like to take a number of those shots, especially of other divers, from underneath, because it's I love this, especially if they're further away from me, they're higher up. I love that silhouetting effect against the surface that has if it's a sunny day, it creates an awesome effect. And the way light hits the bubbles, if I catch them when they're exhaling, is a great effect. So those are the different things that can affect visibility. So when it's a windy day out, especially if it's been windy for several days, consider that you're probably going to have low visibility, and so plan appropriately. If you you're planning on taking pictures, just consider, okay, do you have proper lighting? Do you have articulating arms? You can get extensions too that really bring them way out, that would help you get better light angles to light the subject without getting the backscatter. Or in some cases, you may want to light from behind the subject if you're doing a macro shot, because it will create enough. You don't want it shining right into the camera. You want it shining on the subject from behind, but that will create enough actual it'll create backscatter that way. All the light they'll be lighting from the front is the diffused light of just the general ambience created by your strobes. So those are some things to consider. And just for the sheer enjoyment of it, there's something about the peacefulness of that isolation. Now, if you get freaked out by claustrophobia, probably not a good idea. But if you're okay, if you can be okay in during the day in a low visibility situation, then you will be very good at a night dive when there's great visibility or even moderate visibility, because you'll see whatever your light hits, and you won't be a stranger to the effect of having a limited field of view that typically low visibility affords you. So consider those kinds of things, visibility, etc., when you're going out on a dive, and don't be afraid of it. Just prepare for it. Make sure you have the right equipment and experience, and go with somebody who's familiar with the area. I never recommend diving an area in bad conditions or night unless you've gone diving there in good conditions during the day. And in fact, we teach you to make sure that that's the case, that you get appropriate orientation in good conditions before you do a night dive, or dive there in worse conditions. Real quick before we head to our Ministrivia and wrap things up, I was cruising through the Facebook and noticed that somebody in the Del Rio Community Spotlight page had posted pictures of evidently some leeches have been found in San Felipe Creek, which is kind of, hello guys, it's kind of disturbing because I actually like to dive the creek. Now, I dive typically with at least my 3 mil shorty, but often with a 5 mil full. But still, the fact that that leeches are showing up there, maybe they've always been there, but I've just never been affected by them. But that's, just be forewarned, if you happen to do any diving or swimming there at San Felipe Creek, be aware that leeches have been found, and they actually had pictures of a number of them. So I don't know where about they were located, but that's something to take into consideration. Leeches are nasty. But that's your warning for San Felipe Creek in Del Rio, Texas. All right, let's hit some Administrivia. All right, next Del Rio Dive Club meeting is 19 June at 7 p.m. at Rudy's Restaurant. Would love to see you there. Just get together, know each other, get to know each other, discuss dive opportunities, your dive experiences, etc. The next dive class is the last weekend of this month, 26th to 29th of June. Basically, that class is now closed. I've got 4 students for that, and you need to already sign up by the first week if you were going to do that class. So next one after that is 24th through the 27th of July. So sign up the first week of July, not later than the first week of July if you want to attend that one. August 28th through the 31st. Again, sign up the first week of the month if you want to be a part of that one. And last scheduled class I have, September 25th through the 29th. Again, sign up the first week of September if you want to be a part of that. Air fills available at Broke Mill RV Park out on Highway 90 West. Just give Mike McCarson a call at 830-719-2935. And once again, a reminder, no netcast on the 14th of June because we'll be getting our recertification for doing visual inspections. I just got a new batch of stickers in, so anybody who needs their visuals between now and our trip, let us know. You can, we'd love for you to check us out on DelRioDiveClub.com, or even better yet, follow us on Facebook, like our page, Del Rio Dive Club. Send us a message via Skype. TGWD is our call sign. Check us out there. And, if ScubaBob were here, he would fill you in on his contact information. But you can always send me an email at robert.wade@cetifox.net, or follow me on the Twitter at RobertCFP. And that pretty much finishes out. We didn't have anybody in the chat room tonight, but that's okay. And Facebook has been pretty quiet today too, interestingly. But I'm fixing to close up here and maybe have a little bit more pizza and dessert. We did some pizza today. It just didn't feel like a day we wanted to get out and do a lot of stuff or cook at the house. So I hope you all have a great rest of the weekend. If you go to church, hope you have a great service tomorrow. I'm expecting a great service tomorrow. We always have a lot of fun and worship service. And if you're planning on diving, make sure you plan your dive your plan. Don't dive alone unless you have built up the skills and have the appropriate equipment for solo diving, or what Patty calls self-assisted diving. I never recommend solo diving for the basic certified or advanced certified. I think you really, really do need to have the specialties under your belt, or have insane amounts of experience and other experience and equipment to go with it. But it's always more fun to dive with a friend. So I'm hoping to have some friends to go diving with later this week or next week. Won't be able to this weekend unless it's maybe Sunday. We'll see what happens. But love to hear from you. If you're in the Del Rio area, I put this call out there on Facebook. If you're in the Del Rio area and you're a diver, and you've maybe fancied yourself as getting into talk shows or just kind of doing this kind of thing, love to have you as a guest host on the show. It's very easy to do. You sit down in a chair, put headsets on, and talk on a microphone. We just chat with each other and to the audience out there. And I will not let you hang. I will not leave you hanging. I'll make sure, I'll do my best to make you look good. So, but it's all about having fun. That's why I do this, because I enjoy it, and maybe educate some folks, answer some questions, help them out with some different things, and just hoping to increase awareness of diving in the Del Rio area. And we have a great time with it. So listen, we will see you not next weekend, but the weekend after that. But you can always check out our previous episodes on YouTube. Just go to the Ceti Fox Productions YouTube channel, and you can see all of our previous episodes are there. And but until next time, we will see you on another fantastic episode of Two Guys Who Dive. See ya.